Backstays don't get much respect. You've always got your back to them. Racers pay a fair amount of attention to them because they use them to adjust the tension on the jib stays and to control mast shape. But cruisers, I think, sadly, underutilize them. This one's nice, healthy wire. All the yarns are fair. Good turnbuckle, toggled. Nice lead off of this chain plate. It's all in good shape. On this particular boat, the jib stay turnbuckle is already about 2 blocked. But we can take up the tension using the back stay. If the jib stay isn't tight enough, we don't have to shorten it as long as the mast is where we want it. We can shorten up on the back stay and thus tension the jib stay. And it might even be worth considering putting an adjustable back stay, either a turnbuckle or less likely a hydraulic adjuster for a cruising boat, but some way that you can easily adjust the tension on your back stay. You want it slacker for a slacker stay and thus a fuller sail in light airs, and then you can tighten it up when the wind's blowing harder. Essentially, that's why you adjust your back stays. Okay. Well, one other item here. The sides of this toggle are not quite parallel. They're wanting to move out a little bit. This means that there's an unfair load on the pin because just the outboard sides of the toggle are bearing on it. Again, point loading. Worse than that, sometimes they're so open that they put pressure on the cotter. They can actually shear it right off, in which case they can just come right off. So it's an easy fix just to very gently squeeze these together like in a machinist's vise until the sides are parallel again, and then recotter. Before we move on to the running rigging, I want to show you this little oversized hockey puck. It isn't part of the microphone. It's a logger's tape, a Spencer tape you can get from logger supply stores. It's a 75-foot spring-loaded measuring tape. You can work with your both hands free because it clips to your belt. On this one I made a slight modification, crimped on an alligator clip, tied on a piece of string. You can clip this clip directly to a fitting that you want to start at 0 to measure from, or you can put the string around a fitting, get the tape where you want it, and clip on there so that the 0 point is where you want to start measuring. Then you can just literally walk away to get to the other end, up to 75 feet, and when you're done measuring, just yank on it. It'll come clear and wind itself back up. You'll save about 6 years of your life not having to go like this with a big tape measure all day, using up both hands. Really handy little tool. Let's move on to that winch. All right, running rigging. This is the heart of most boats' running rigging. That is the part you're actually going to use while you're underway, the primary winch for the sheets that lead to the jib. It's a marvelous bit of engineering, a way to gain tremendous mechanical advantage, and a fairly precision tool that you leave out in all kinds of weather. But that's only true if you keep it well lubricated, for one thing. This one is very stiff. You should be able to turn it very easily by hand. Easy fix though, you disassemble the winch and probably in this case use some solvent to remove any hardened grease, lubricate it, put it back together. I'm making it sound a little easier than it is. The gearing in there can get fairly complicated, so before you remove it, have a nice clean cloth spread out in the cockpit. Do it on a calm day with no wind, no distractions. Maybe even take Polaroid snapshots of the guts of this thing before you disassemble it. Or at the very least, don't disassemble both winches at once. You can always use the other one as a model. When you got that taken care of and your friction is reduced, you're getting all the mechanical advantage you need out of it. The next most crucial thing is how the line leads into the winch. In this case, the lead is a little high. That is, it's very easy for this sheet to climb up over the previous turns and get a nightmare called a wrap, where it gets jammed on top of the previous turns. Very difficult to clear, but also very easy to avoid. We can either put a little pad, a little wedge-shaped pad under the winch, which will lower that lead to the winch, or maybe add a turning block forward. Another couple of points here. This elaborate chrome device on the top is the stripper arm of the self-tailer. You lay it in the little ledge here, lead it around, and the line automatically is stripped out as it comes around. And a lot of people have self-tailing winches don't know that you can move this stripper arm on the top of the winch depending how you want the line to come out. In this case, it strips it so it just falls into the cockpit. Maybe you want to have it stripped so it comes out further forward or aft, depending on how you typically sit or work the winch from the cockpit. Sometimes inspections present you with puzzles. You see something that's not quite right, and you get to kind of fiddle around and tinker and think your way through to make it right. And case in point here is this main sheet. There's adequate mechanical advantage for this size boat here in these two blocks, but the leads aren't fair. And remember, one of the things we're looking for is fairness. Anytime blocks don't lead clean to each other, you get friction. In this case, this front block, this double, is twisted by the load. It's being pulled that way on this side and this way on that side. It gets torqued, and it's going to rub right here in the front. A lot of friction. On this after block, this block is twisted just because this shackle won't let it come all the way around, so the lines lead fair to the lower block. And one other problem is that the main sheet is spliced. There's an eye splice here, which is a great way to finish a line that's under high loads, but the splice is thicker than the regular rope, and it will want to jam in this upper sheave when the sheet gets too blocked. It's just barely hitting the sheave now. Well, there's a number of ways we could fix this. We could fix this problem, this after single block, by just putting a twist shackle here instead of a regular shackle. A shackle that comes down in a short spiral so that the block, instead of sitting like this, will sit sideways and thus have a fair lead here. But that won't help this situation. So how about this? We'll switch the positions of these two blocks. We'll put the double block back here. The line will lead up and down to it clean with no torque. And we'll put the single block up here. The line will lead up to it and forward. Again, no torque. The only hang-up with that is that when this block is back there and this eye splice is leading to it, this distance here is a lot shorter than this distance here. So the eye splice will be in the block, and when we really reef on this sheet, it'll want to jam in the sheave. So, good solution will be cut the splice off. And main sheets don't get as heavily loaded as, say, mooring lines or halyards do as a rule, because the load is shared among so many parts. So instead of a splice, we'll just tie a knot. We'll make a hitch here on this lower block. Much more compact. A good hitch has 80% the strength of the line. You only lose about 20%. All the strength you need for this application. And that'll take care of the main sheet. Clean leads, no friction, no jammed sheaves. Although, you know, these aren't the best blocks in the world. They're not nearly up to the quality of the rest of the boat. And it's easy for me to recommend this because I don't have to pay for it, but I'd like the owner to get some better blocks, at least better looking blocks. Now, another puzzle is this locator line for the main sheet. This will move the traveler car back and forth depending on what point of sail you're on. You can pull the boom upwind or let it off downwind. Unfortunately, this line is too big for the sheaves it goes through. It's a real tight fit through here, and even more so up here on the traveler car. You can see how the rope just barely fits into the space for this sheave. And again, we're going to weaken the system because this is too strong. This line does not need to be remotely as strong as it is. So by going to a smaller line, we'll reduce friction in this sheave and these sheaves and make it a much lower effort piece of gear to haul on. It's appropriate. And somebody just had a half-inch rope lying around that said, we'll use that. The other problem with the locator lines, as you can see, this part of it is twisted. It goes in a spiral here as it goes up to the bitter end. This can be a problem. It'll add to friction when those twists go through the sheaves. They'll want to jam. And the reason that they spiral can be traced directly to how the rope is coiled. I'll show you here. If you coil this, every time you make a turn, you have to put a twist in the rope so it will lie flat. You twist and turn, and twist and turn. And if you do that with 3-strand rope, the older style rope, when you go to make the line run, it'll untwist. But double braid rope, it doesn't. It just keeps those spirals and wants to kink and jam. So, easy fix is make one regular turn by putting a twist in one way, and then make a twist in the opposite direction to form that loop, and then a regular turn, and then an opposite twist. And that way when the line runs, it runs straight. You don't get those kinks and twists in the rope. An alternative is to make figure-8 twists. You twist one way at the top and the other way at the bottom. And again, that will run straight. Works. I find that way is a little more likely to tangle and a little trickier to do.